So, Vav Tishrei, Rabbi Gaffney's class, Hemshech Samech Tes. This year is Samech Tes, 100-year anniversary of the Mimer, because we just passed Rosh Hashanah. So, page Vav.
Very good. So, just by way of checking up, who's usually in this class? Yitzchak Ironberg left today.
Yeah, Michael's left.
What's with Michael Strauss? What's with him?
No, I meant Michael Weiss left already.
Oh, Michael Weiss left, yeah.
Igby left.
But there's this fellow Strauss. What's with him? He was out Mincha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why do you smile when I ask what's with him?
I don't know.
Huh? I see. And who else is there here in the class?
Rafi. Rafi.
Yeah.
From Rosenberg and that's it.
Yeah?
I think most people are.
He's leaving, yeah, he's left already.
Everybody's gone for Tishrei. Everybody's gone for Tishrei to the Rebbe.
Who's this?
Everybody.
That's the whole class.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, Strauss certainly didn't go to the Rebbe. And who else was it? So, all right, good. So we were holding on Daf towards the end. I think we even got over onto Omid Vov. And we're talking about the Mila of the Neshamas Gavoyas. And we saw that they were Nikroim Evde Hashem Nishmasam. I think we mentioned that, yeah, we already got that far. And we saw that was Mitzad Milas of Madregas Nishmasam Shahem Madregas Gavoyas Ma'id. Yeah, and we already got that. Well, and therefore, since they come from very high levels within Elikus, Gambi Ridosam Lamato Meya Bohem Gili Nishmosam. Even when they come down Lamata, then there's Meya in their Gufim and in their Aveda, Gilui Nishmosam, the revelation of the of their Nishamas. Now that means that we're going to see a little later in the Maimah that all Nishamas are originally from a very high Madrega. Gemavur and Tanya and Perik Beis. However, the way the Avishah causes the Neshama to come down is not similar in every in case of each Neshama. Now, some Neshamas come down without any effect of the whole Seder of the elements on the Neshama, and they come down and they are the way, the Lamato, down here, they're the way they are Lamaila. And other Neshamas come down in a way that they literally are affected, and they, to some extent, in the actual Yerid itself, they become involved, or as it were, absorbed by certain madrigas in the elements and the stalshalas of the elements on the way down. However, Neshamas who are from madrigas Gavoyas Miyahid, we could say that the implication is that since they come from such high madrigas, that on their way down, they're such essential neshamas that the Helen Vehester of, say, the Ishtaushlers and the Helen Vehester of the Elamus Beklal is not able to be mastir against them. In other words, that there's such an essential light of Elikus that no matter what they go through, they're not affected by it, but they remain B'toikef Agila. So that when they come down here Lamata, the oil of their neshama, meaning the Elikus, which is in that neshama, is meir begilui. It shines mitzad what it really is, and therefore they are begolui lamata. They are mitzad the way their etzem neshama really is lamaila. Now, by rov neshamas, as we'll see, the way the neshama is lamata is somewhat different than the etzem neshama lamaila. And on the contrary, there has to be formed some sort of a connection, and it's only al tzad chesed v'rachamim that it actually occurs. That there is a connection made between the neshama lamata and the neshama, how its etzem neshama is lamayla. Those who are from madregas gavoyas me'oid, or when their neshama comes down lamata, then its etzem remains here lamata, what it is lamayla. In other words, the etzem haneshama, the essence of the neshama, which is lamayla, proceeds all the way down lamata. So therefore, the etzem and neshama is meya begilui, the way they are here, even in their yerida. And therefore he uses the expression mitzad etzem and neshama, due to the fact that the very essence of the neshama, how it is lamayla, is actually meya into their body begolui. Therefore yesh po hergesh zeh da'amitius ein seiporocho. Therefore they have that hergesh of the emes, as you might say, the genuineness of Ein Seif Baruch. Who and what is that? Eishu Yeshua Amiti Ushakula Kamei Kaloicha Koshiva, as we saw in the previous Maimah, in the previous Shia, and at the end of the previous page, the Yesh Agashmi, and what we consider the Yesh of creation, or that's a false Yesh. That's a Yesh which is not the immediate union of existence. It's only a kaloi. It's like an existence which is nothing. In other words, it's a negated form of existence. Ve'ilu, the Rebishter, he is the emes being, as well the Rambam used the expression amitas himotza. He's the genuineness of being found. He is the eternal, as you might say, always being there, always being found. But that is genuine Matthias. Ve'ilu, the Matthias of the Yesh, being as it is a beginning, it has a beginning and also, as you might say, an end. It's therefore it's not an Matthias. Even when it's there, it's not genuine Matthias, but it's totally completely in another Matthias, which is the genuine Matthias of the Eibishter. And therefore, the neshama who comes lamata mitzad madregas gavoyas, and he has the etzem and neshama begolui by him lamata, and therefore he has a feeling. Yesh boi hergesh zeh. He's aware, and feeling means an idea of awareness and sensitivity to the whole time of the emes of the Eibishter being the Yeshua. He feels that all other inyonim are not really existence at all, because they are kula kamei in front of him, in front of the emes of Matthias. They're all like nothing. Kaloicha shive. And we discussed that kof. Why do we say kiloi? Why don't we just say loi? The emes is that on a much higher madrega we say that the yesh doesn't really exist. It's kiloi. It's loi. Why do we say kiloi? Because Sokos of the Eibishter does mean in the whole, what you might call kavana of the creation, the whole trick, as you might say, of the creation. The purpose is that the Yesh should appear to be a Matthias, and to a certain extent he does have a toikev of a Matthias, at least in a way that he's able to be malimo mastir legabi his shurish, at least how he is down here. And therefore, we say that he's only kaloi choshev with a kof adimion, even though in a much higher form of truth he really is not there. But since Hashem gives him that permission to be there, then we call him kaloi only. But really, being the truth of the matter is, that's what he says in Tanya the Alter Rebbe, the famous letter that he wrote after he came from Petersburg, in the Geras HaKodesh chapter Beis. That's the famous letter that he wrote to the Chassidim after he got freed from the prison in Petersburg. The Alter Rebbe writes over there that Kula Kamei Chaloi Chashivei means that what more Kamei is more Kurloi, that the higher thing is in its shur, and the higher it is in Madregas, if you're going upwards as it were, then the more you realize the loy. In other words, the more you're kamei, the more you're fanov, the more you find yourself in front of the Eibishter, then the more you realize the loy. Therefore, it's the neshama who comes from Madregas Gavoyas. We'll see that's even Atilas and comes down into the guf, that etzem of the neshama, how it is l'mayla, is really meir begiloi in the guf lamata, then he feels the whole world exactly the opposite of what normal people feel it. Normal people, when I say normal, I mean abnormal maybe, but the way the so-called norm of the existence is that the mensch feels the world, and Elikus, he calls it ayin. He's not really able to appreciate it. He knows that it's there, but he's not really able to have an emes appreciation of it, and how much more so an emes awareness or feeling of it. And therefore he takes the world to be simplicity, and Elikus to be, what you might call a thing beyond him, and therefore he calls it ayin. For these neshamas are exactly the opposite. They sense and they're aware how the only emes existence is really HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only emes existence is Elikus, and everything else is nothing, and as it were, kaloi, isn't it? But I'd appreciate if you put that down, okay? Ukenoida, and as is well known, the kol neshamas k'moi shehem b'shor shem ba'atzilas. He said, all the neshamas, the way they are in their shorish ba'atzilas, meaning to imply that all neshamas are originally to be found in the world of Atzilas. Like we say every day in the bracha in the morning, the neshama shenosah to be tehora he, the neshama that you placed in me is pure. And then we say atovaros atoitzato atona nafach be. So it's well known that those four statements are connected the arba oilamas, and tehora, pure, means the neshama out is in a oilam atzilas, which is Elikus. And then we have ato yatzato, ato barasa yatzato v'nafachta, they are bria yitzira v'asiya. In other words, how the neshama has already gone into the oilamas and nivroim has come down through them. But every neshama is able to say that the neshama that you put in me was before Yitzata v'nofachta, before you passed it into Olam Biyah, it was Torah, which means that every neshama originally is from Olam HaTzila. So he said, the way the neshama is there, Harihi b'pinas re'iyah b'mahus Elikus. The neshama is in that situation in a state of seeing and observing in a form of re'iyah mahus Elikus. Now we explained, I think in the previous class, I have a feeling we're doing a bit of chazorah here. We explained in the previous class that the word re'iyah is a little puzzling, because obviously a neshama in Olam HaTzila doesn't have eyes. So we connect the concept of re'iyah with the idea of the physical eye. And so there's no doubt that the act of re'iyah on the part of the physical eye is due to certain koiches in ruchnius and in Elikus. However, when we say re'iyah, we mean as a hasoger and an awareness of Elikus that the neshama has there in Olam HaTzilas in such a way that it's a reality to the neshama, affects her in the deepest aspect of her being. And when you see something, there's a very profound effect on you. When you observe something that actually occurred, well, that can make an effect and a mark on your whole life in a way that you'll never be able to forget that you saw it, and you'll never be able to quite rid yourself of the impression or the effect that had on you. And therefore, people are accustomed to say, when they talk about absolute conviction, then they say, but I saw it with my eyes, or I observed it with my own eyes, and therefore it's an unshakable conviction which penetrates into all the different aspects of life in general, and therefore that's the tremendous hearers that you have to have with your eyes, that you mustn't look at things which are not proper, al-pi the rotzen of the Eibishter, etc., because if you allow them to conquer your eyesight, then they also have the ability to sink in such a way that they remain sort of a deep mark in the soul and in the effect of a person in his day-to-day life, and they can have unfortunately negative effects, which it's very hard later for him to shake off, because he's become united through the union of Re'iyah with them. In other words, the Re'iyah gaps the difference between you and the entity, and it brings the entity into your being. And that's the concept of Re'iyah. So Lamaila, so there's a form of understanding which is so profound that it's used the expression Ke'ilu Roya. You can sometimes be convinced of something you never actually saw it physically, but you understood it and you appreciated it in your mind in such a depth that we say that you're so convinced and that is so united with your understanding and your whole being that it's like as if you saw it. So that's what we mean, that the yichud of the neshama, how she is an Atzilus, with what she is aware of and what she appreciates, is seeks, as you might say, or goes and penetrates into all the levels of the neshama. So we say that she has Re'iyah, but it's the profundity of union through the powers of the neshama that she has there in Olam Atzilus, which are Be'ika, understanding and sensitivity. And so therefore, we call that a inyan from Re'iyah, but in what sort of elikus? In mahus elikus. Now that's like the key to the whole argument here. The expression mahus. But mahus means the essence of something. The mahu. Yeah, the expression mahu means what is it? So when you say mahus, who is that? Huh? Is that when you say mahus, then you imply the very what is it of that thing. In other words, the essence of the being of that thing in a way which is touching to its very essential being, not just a definition of it. The word matzius is like an allied term to mahus, but in a way it's almost like the opposite. Matzius means the entity, the existing fact that it is there. We as beings down here in Biyah, when once again I'm talking in a general sense, I'm not necessarily accusing anybody. We generally down here, we only have appreciation of the existing entity of things, what we call matzius. We don't really know the essence of things. Maybe in certain gashimistic inyanim we can have a certain appreciation of the essence of them. But even there, it's hard to say that we really appreciate the very essence of the Gashmi. We have a certain profundity of appreciation of how he works and how he functions, what he's made of, molecules and all this type of particles and the considers, that we can come to appreciate what might be called the matzias of the mahus. In other words, we come to know a little bit about the mahus, of only the existing fact of the mahus, not the very mahus of the mahus that's gone on in the Maimonim of the Friedrich particularly, and briefly in certain parts of the Maimonim of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden, but very much in the works of the Friedrich Rebbe, he talks a lot about what he calls the four madregas, what he calls Matzias HaMatzias, and then what he calls Mahus HaMatzias, and then what we call Matzias HaMahus and Mahus HaMahus. In other words, that in both levels there's also Matzias and Mahus. So generally speaking, we maybe in Gashmias can sometimes touch on the higher level, which is Matzias of the Mahus. Of the Mahus of the Mahus, I doubt if we ever reach. How much more so in spiritual things. In spiritual things we only have a knowledge of the Matzias HaMatzias. We know that there is such an entity. Maybe we can come to appreciate somewhat the Matzias of the Mahus, that there is a Mahus, there is an essence of Ruchnias. But not that we really have any real Chasogya in the Mahus of Ruchnias at all. How much more so in the Matzias of the Mahus, and how much more so in the Mahus HaMahus. That's even in Inyonim which are close to us, the Hainu, the highest of the Nishama, which is Befilu Machaya the Guf, don't have any knowledge. Maybe the Matzias of the Mahus, maximum. Of even that is a very high madrega. We have maybe some knowledge of the Matzias HaMatzias, maybe a little truth of the Mahus and Matthias. But we're going up into Mahus itself, Matthias or the Mahus, that we don't have any trace at all, except maybe very great Balei Hazoge. So therefore, how much more so when it comes to the very Mahus of Elokus itself, when we talk about divinity per se, the Eibishter, then of course we have no knowledge of the Mahus whatsoever, not even the Matthias of the Mahus. However, the Indian of Olam HaTzilas is Gilui Elokus. Albeit it's only Ha'oras of Elokus, it's only Oyer which has been Meir from the Eibishter, but the Oyer is Me'ain HaMoya, as we know. Therefore, Elokus is what we call Mahus Elokus. I'm sorry, Atzilas is what we call Mahus Elokus. Albeit it's only Gilui Mahus, it's only Ha'ora, but it's what we call Mahus Elokus. Now, do come to us a very important dinim that we have to just talk a little bit about the background of it for a minute, in order that it should become more muvan. What is the whole mahalach here? What it follows is that after Atzilas, and after the helem of Malchus Atzilas, after Malchus Atzilas is malim on the whole oyer of Atzilas, and only allows a ha'ora for the hisavas of olam as bria yitzira vasiya, then we say that what happens is that the Eibishter is no longer revealing his mahus, even the mahus of his oyer, not the mahus of his very etzav, but even the mahus of his oyer, the Eibishter is no longer revealing. And the whole inyan of Olam HaBriya, Yitzira Vasiya, and everything connected with him, and how much more so down here in Olam HaAsiya Gashmiyas, the whole way the Eibishter reveals himself is only that you can know about him, but you can't really know his essence. You can know that there is such a thing as Elokus, Dahainu Matziyu, which means that all the inyanim of Olam HaBriya, Yitzira Vasiya, all the malochim and all those things which are in Olam Briya Yitzira Vasiya, Olam Biyah, are only how the Eibishter is, as it were, hiding his very essence from us, and all those beings are only not real entities, they're only entities which are, as it were, legabi him, just an existing entity which doesn't really have any matzias. And that's the inyan of Kula Kamei Kalecha Chashiva. What we're going to see as we go along, the neshama of a yid is maybe a slight, not maybe, but is a slight exception to that rule. But all other inyonim are only what they was like playing a hide and seek game with the whole creation, with the whole, in other words, that the whole concept of creation per se, from its very first madriga all the way down, is kalei. It's like a game, Kaviyot, that the Eibus is playing klapei, those that he wants to be aware of him, in a way that they don't really have any existence, because they're only matzias, they're not mahus, they're only, as it were, a dimayon which Hashem has made, that it should appear kach v'kach. Which means that all the malachim afila, and all those inyonim which appear so real when we consider about them, legabe Hashem, that's the pshat kalecha shiva. In other words, they're all like a luminescence or a reflection. They're not really a material. They're not really an emes existence, because they're only the metzias of Elokus for the sake of knowing that he's there, of not really knowing what he really is. So all the beings that come into being are also in that way, they're only a dimayon for the sake of a certain game what Hashem is aiming for. And that's a famous shaila, the famous question that occurs in Tzidus. What is the tremendous maila that a bittul, here we say that the Aveda, the Nivroim down here in this world is bittul ayesh. You've got to come to the Indian of bittul, of being mevatel yourself completely to the Eibishter, iskafia sitra achra, afilu ishapcha. What is the mile of all those? They don't really exist. I mean, what does it mean that you're being koi for the sitra achra, or being even koi for your own matzias, like the Eibishter? Your matzias are not really a matzias in the middle. What does it try to say that the Eibishter has any tainug, he has any reference, or he has any inyonim legabi that? It's all like a game anyway, and Hashem knows. The way Hashem sees it is that it's not just kaloi, it's mamish loi. What's the whole meaning of our Veda? What's the whole meaning of Bitla Yesh? I don't suppose you ever thought about it. So it's a worthy question, isn't it? And the truth of the matter is that the answers are very delicate. And the Alter Rebbe asked the Shaila, the famous cloud that is kafya sitra achra, is talik yekora de kuchu brigu. When you make a little bit of his kafya in this word, it causes unbelievable giloi. That's what in the Bosi Dagani and in Tanya and Perikosayan, the Alter Rebbe is married. You make this unbelievable tainu by the Eivishtal day that you're mavatli your own self and you're mavatli your own yeshes and your own adequate natia to sitra achra and to yesh, and you kuifa the nefesh abahami, you force and compel the nefesh abahami. It's like the Bainan. That's basically what the Bainan is an unbelievable expert at. And you cause this unbelievable tainu l'mayla. The Alter Rebbe asked right in about the second Maimon in Likutei Torah. It's very early in Likutei Torah. The Alter Rebbe asked the Shaila, what sort of tainu is that? It's not really there. As far as he's concerned, it's not. The whole thing is just a, how do you call it, a luminescence. It's just like it doesn't really exist. What sort of tainu does he have from that? So I must admit that it's a very good question. So what is the answer? The answer is that Eino Chanami, the Eivshter doesn't have tainu from it, really. Because if you say the Eivshter has tainu b'klal, it's a problematic concept. What do you mean he has tainu? That means that as it were you're adding something to him. You can't add anything to the Eivshter. Well then, there's an old saying in Yiddish, that gewollt willen. He wanted to want. In other words, that gufa, what he wants, well, that gufa is a decision on his part. He wants to want. And the same with the Indian from tainu, the Eivshter wants, as it were. He allows himself to have that tainu. Or he doesn't really have it. He allows himself to react in such a way as if he were having tainu. That's the whole Indian, what the Alter Rebbe said. That we don't have any idea why they was to make what was the whole union. Well, all we know is that Nisave loy liyas loy dira b'taktari. Of a regular, what you say Nisave means you had a taiva. You imply that in even oinig and tainu. It is over say lamahu misave. What does he have from it? B'klal. And for the Alter Rebbe, if a taiva is kein kashi in it. You never heard the famous answer of the Alter Rebbe. There's an old saying in Yiddish, Rafa Taiva is kein kashya. If somebody has a taiva for something, you can't ask a kashya about it. You can only tell him to stop or to go ahead of it. You can't come on and say, why do you have a taiva for something like kafir? He'll tell you, I like that sort of thing. Other people maybe not. But yeah. In other words, the inyan from taiva, be'etzim minyoni, is a dova bilti muva. And therefore, the Eivshter, the Alter Rebbe said that Rafa Taiva is kein kashya. You can't ask any shilas, why did he want? Because we don't know why he wanted it. It doesn't make any sense. Unless they call feces mocking. I feel in Taiva Gufa doesn't make any sense. And Mamela, that's what the Alter Rebbe answered. And so the whole Nisave, well, that what he wants, well, that Gufa is what's called in the Lashon of Chassidus, that's Gufa called a Bechira by the Eivshter. That he chose all those in Yonah. And Bechira is Bermanskin Kashani. Because Bechira is a name from Bechira Chofshi, that he chose. There's absolutely nothing involving him one way or the other. There's no implication to Hashem one way or the other. But he was Beicher. He chose that should be a Inyan. By him, a Zeivi, it would be Rotzen. Or a Zeivi, it would be Taina. But, however, once that has occurred, then there is a direct choice on the part of the Eivshter that he wants Dafke Inyan Kozev Inyan Kozev, and the whole Inyan from Olam is Bria Yetzirah Vatzia, apart from Atzilas, are like a game. They don't really exist. They have no real essence. They're only like a essence, like Avidim Makablit, and they're not even an essence. They're only a reflection which are seen by the Makablim of it, not by Hashem. In other words, he doesn't see the immediate rear of the Eivshter. He doesn't see your goof. He just sees a door which is mamish not there, b'klal. But he makes it in such a way that Gabi you it has a play. And therefore, that's called the inner for Metzius Elokus. And Mamela ad Atzilus, it's Mahus, which is made the entity of Hashem. And where Hashem's entity is made, then nothing can be a Metzius. Nothing can possibly be a Metzius, because Einoid Milvade. How is it you after Malchus Atzilus, you get this whole inyan of a Dima in Bill? The Nasadini, the Nasa Odom, but Talmenu Kidmo. Seinu. Tzalmeinu means our very essence. Well, that's the union of Atzilus. The Kaviyochel is the union of the Odom, how he's an Atzilus. Tainu Nishmosei, how it's Mushash and Atzilus. And then after that, Kidmu Seinu. Everything after that is only a Dimayon. It's only a likeness. It's not really any emes of Matthias. And therefore, that's what the Rebbe means to say, that the Neshama, the way it is in Atzilus, is Roya Mahus Elakut. Now that comes to tell us another basic thing. What is the Taisa that sees Mahus Elakut? It is Mahus Elakut. The Neshama in Atzilus is Mahus Elakut. Because everything in Atzilus is Mahus Elakut. And therefore, we have to say, there are one of two possibilities. The first possibility we could say is that you only see what you really are. In other words, that where you really are, that's what you see. In other words, somebody who's really munach in dvarim, not what they should be, well, that's what he sees. That's the matter of his munach in Ra, that's what he sees. He sees Ra, he sees evil, he sees not good things. But if he's munach b'toiv, and his whole being is into good, he sees only good. Right? He sees only and all the other things are by him, like shtus. He can't understand what b'klal are they all about. To give you a very interesting example, there was the altar Bel Zarov, the Vertigais and the Rabarnu, Bells, he was the one that they saved him from the Nazis. He was a Ish Kodesh, Mamish, a Kedesh Elim. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said that he was a Ish Kodesh. Yeah. And there's a letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to him, asking him for a bracha for Rosh Hashanah, for the Bells. Yeah. It's he was an unbelievable Kodesh, and they managed to save him with an unbelievable nissim. They got him out from the Nazis, from the Deutschen. Yamach Shemon v'Zichro. Al Choponim is the Frierdiker Rebbe was very active in the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote all sorts of letters to different parties in different places that they should smuggle him through, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was very involved in like our Rebbeim were involved in everything that happened. Every good thing that happened in the world, our Rebbeim got some finger in it somewhere along the line. It's amazing. For example, I heard on Shabbos that they were just beginning to find out in some Medina or other, I forgot it, he even told me which Medina was, but I was feeling so not the best and a lot of background, I didn't hear what he said. They're finding out now that the Rebbe had kesher with certain people. There were certain people that knew the Rebbe's name and they knew what he was involved in. Even though nobody knows anything about Yiddishkeit over there. It's some, very, very distant place. And actually, the Rebbe's influence was already felt over there as well. It's only becoming known now. The stories are beginning to be told. And that's like it is. The Rebbe's influence was just everywhere throughout the whole world. It doesn't exist almost any pino where words of the Rebbe or his letters or something didn't reach. That's Melech HaMashiach. And so Melech HaMashiach's koilel the whole world, and he brings all the Netzutzis to their shorish and brings them all back one way or another to Elokus. Anyway, back to this Rabbi Arnu, that he was an amazing Kedosh Elyon. After they got him here to Eretz Yisrael, he weighed about just a couple of kilos. People could just pick him up by putting their fingers under his elbows. And they could just lift him up like that, because he almost had no mahus. Mahus kashmir. He didn't have it. He just never ate. He was just an unbelievable Kedosh Elyon. So when they first took him into Tel Aviv, he had a place in Tel Aviv at the beginning. And then he moved to Yerushalayim, but he used to come back to Tel Aviv in the winter because Yerushalayim was too cold. Because he was so thin, he felt the cold most terribly. So therefore, even in the summer, he used to wear a little overcoat with a fur around it. He used to get cold. Because he didn't have any mahus kashmir. So anyway, when they brought him into Tel Aviv, so one Shabbos they took him out of the house where he was and took him up the stairs into the shul they made for the Hasidim over there, this shul. But in the meantime, there's some cars drove past from Tel Aviv, not such a from start. Now there could be a certain part where they don't travel, but I know that and some cars drove past, on the road. So he saw these cars, and he said, "Oh, fuck," and he hopped his head, and they said, "Oh, listen, Rabbi, don't take it to heart, because they were about to explain to him that happens here, never people, travel on Shabbos." And he said, "As he feel kranke Yidden, he said, never, as he feel pikuach nefesh in ein Shabbos, he said, if these cars are traveling, it must be pikuach nefesh." And he said, in other words, he was so shocked that so many people were critically ill. He couldn't believe that Yidden were traveling on Shabbos. He couldn't believe it. It was impossible for him to believe that Yidden would travel on Shabbos. So therefore, he saw a car driving on Shabbos. It immediately occurred in his mind that those people were critically ill. So he said, there must be some, what do you call it, a deva, how do you say a deva? A plague, so many terrible diseases on one Shabbos, and he couldn't understand, and they tried to explain to him, and he just wouldn't be recovered. He said, no, I said, these shouldn't have troubling me. In other words, he saw only good. For everything he saw was only good. He couldn't understand what is right. He couldn't believe there was such a thing as evil understanding in the world. He just came out from the Nazis, he just came through the unbelievable troubles that he'd gone through. He went through the most terrible, threats to his life, and he lost his whole mishpacha and everything. It was unbelievable what he went through. And he comes into the street and he sees some cars traveling, and all he could believe was there was pikuach nefesh. So that's what it means, that you see what you are, what you hold by, that's what you see. We can suggest that since the neshama is in Atzilus, and she's mahus Atzilus, therefore she sees only Atzilus. She sees only what Atzilus really is. And what is Atzilus? Mahus Elikut. Or we could suggest another possibility. The Alter Rebbe says in what we're learning now in the Chittas, in Tanya, in the Geras HaKodesh, in the Iyuv Hayeu, the famous, by the way, the Alter Rebbe wrote that a few hours before Kaviochel, he was mistalik, before he left the Goliath upon him the world. As the Alter Rebbe wrote that famous part we're learning now in the Chittas. Do you guys learn Chittas? I hope you do.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, very, very complicated. Very. It's probably the most complicated section of the Tanya. It's also funny, it's written over there, that there are in Atzilus what's called heicholos to Atzilus. And in those heicholos are even malachim. It's a chiddush gadol. These are malachim elyonim sheba Atzilus. Well, that's mamish a chiddush gadol. Well, I suppose it's like having big mekubalim. It's not a chiddush. Like having people like us, it's a chiddush. And from that, it's mashma that in Atzilus gufa, there's a certain part which you can call as a word the oilam of Atzilus, even though it's not oilam in the real sense. And there are like madregas that are mithaber from Atzilus inside Atzilus, not just Atzilus itself, but things which came about from Atzilus. The Hainu Neshomas and Malachim. That's the expression he uses over there. So maybe we're talking about the Neshama is how they are in the Heicholos of Atzilus, which means that they're not mamish. It's a mahus Atzilus, but they're not anything else either in a way. They're only like a being that's come into being inside Atzilus, and therefore they're masig, the inyonim of Atzilus, and not even from Riyah. That's what we can suggest, either of those two possibilities. However, those that he says that are madregas gavoyos, they come down into the world, and the etzem of them is meir in such a way that even hilamata they're shaykh to mahus alakus, or those are those that they come mamish from mahus atzilus. They're not even in the heicholos atzilus, for their mamish mahus atzilus. Over here we're talking about the clothes of Neshamas, that they have a Einif and Riyah in Mahus Elikus. That's what we could suggest. Since they have a knowledge in Mahus, then they know only of Elikus. Mamish, they don't know this whole Dimyan which occurs, this whole Matthias which occurs in Biyah. To them that's a whole Chiddush which doesn't exist. And if says the Rebbe, Ukamaima, Afogab, the inhu loy chazi mazlai chazi. That should be written in the plural. Afogab inhu, as they state in the Gemara. Ihu means one person. Inhu, the nun means they saw. Afogab the inhu loy chazi, they didn't see mazlai chazi. Now that's a story. I think I mentioned to you. It's a story in the Gemara in the sector Megillah, where Daniel, it's brought down in Daniel, that Daniel saw this a tremendous Gilui. At the end of Daniel, he saw this amazing Nevuah of things that are going to be Liosid, and it was all in different symbols and different inyonim. And he saw it in the form of a machazeh, a vision. He saw it in a vision. He was accompanied by a whole group of people, and they saw it standing on the bank of a big river in Bovel there. So it's written that Daniel, he saw it, but he was the only one who actually saw it per se. And the other people didn't see it. However, the other people did react in such a way that they fell into a great pachad. So it's written that they fell on their faces and everything, mitzad goydel hapachad, even though they didn't actually see it. So the Gemara asked the Shiloh Mela Daniel that he saw it, that he fell down on his face and everything because he saw it. But these people, they didn't see it, so why did they fall down? So the Gemara says, they didn't actually see it, being as they are down here, but the mazal, the shoyrush of their neshama, the way it is l'mayla, it saw it, or they saw it, but the mazal of their neshama, and that's why they fell on the ground, and they fell into a great pachad. It's written with pachad, as they state in Nazi, fell on them a great trembling pachad. So the Gemara says, what sort of pachad? They didn't even see anything. But that was because there was a certain influence in their bodies of the mazal of the neshama. Pirush mazlayu, hu b'chinas shoyrush ha-neshama k'moishu hu l'mayla bi'ah tzilas. Like we just saw, either mamish mahus atzilas or al chaponim in the hecholas of atzilas, hari hu roya b'chinas mahus elkus mamish. Yeah, the neshama sees the very essence of mahus, not the whole dimayon, the whole game that there is in Olam Abriya, but sees mamish the very essence of elkus. Umitzad b'chinas mahus elkus, hari kol mashe nivro v'nisabe hu b'chinas kaloi mamish. Like we just explained, everything that comes from Olam Abriya, Nivro, v'nisabe in Olam Hayitzira v'asiyah, comes down into being from the first Bria in Olam Abriya. It's all kaloicha, it's all just a dimayon of Metzias. It's not mahus. It's just as if it were there, but it's not really. Mamela, it's all kaloi, and ever, says the Rebbe, the neshama, how it was in Atzilas, or how it is in Atzilas, it sees and is aware of mahus, and therefore it's not mispoiled from the whole Indian of Matzias, but it's mispoiled from the mahus. Since they didn't actually see it, but that Indian of mahus was made into them al chaponim, not betachlis agilu, but at least it was influenced them, and it was made partially into their being. At least they sensed and were aware of a tremendous pacha, even though they didn't actually see it per goli. Mashek in Daniel, that he was a novi, and he was an unbelievably high person, he was on Atzilas Mamish, as he saw. Yeah, he saw it kipshute. Well, that's the reason he said the fact that Mahus Elakus Sokosof is roya and sees Mamish Mahus Elakus, well, that's why it is that every year there's got the union of a Emuna in Elokus, and Emunah b'pshitas in the highest union of Achtus Hashem. Koyach Emunah b'kol echad v'echad Yisrael, lahamin be'emunah pshuta inyan Achtus Hashem, to believe with absolute simple belief. What pshuta means that it's obvious to him. It doesn't. There's no place for any discussion about it. Masher kol echad ve'echad, masher nilu achoikrim lahasik afilu efes katzeu. He said when it came to the philosophers, the thinkers, they were nilu. Nilu means they just lost their power. They became worn out. They get weary from trying to gain even in understanding. Lahasik means to understand. In understanding, afilu efes katzeu, afilu the edge of the oneness of Hashem. In other words, that all the philosophers and thinkers for generations have been trying to break their heads. How can you say Hashem is one, and how does it make sense, and in what way is He one, how, where, when? And none of them really understand it, and all they understand is just the edge of it. They touch the idea, but they don't really appreciate the emes of that Indian. He said, "Ve'ilu ve'Yisrael, but ilu yidden heima ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim." They are believers, the sons of believers. That's a lesson in the Gemara. That Avraham Avinu, he gave rise to a seed in the world who they are ma'aminim, and they come from him, and therefore they're b'nei ma'aminim, and it goes over from generation to generation. It passes on from father to son, ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, shekol echad v'echad ma'amin bozeh b'pchinas emunah per shuta. Every Yid believes in the oneness of the Eibusha with a simple, inexplicable, but nonetheless not given to discussion. Emunah, ve'ein tzorich lezeh shum ois klal. Said he doesn't need any ois. Ois means like a sign or any proof about that at all. You don't have to prove to him Achtus Hashem. You don't have to show a sign or bring some sort of indication. A Yid just accepts with absolute simplicity, mitzad his neshama, that the Eibush is one, and that the Eibush is the emes of Matthias. Well, that's what oneness implies.
Isn't there something written by Eliyahu Hanavi about...
There's
a prayer somewhere written by Eliyahu Hanavi about how God is one, but not one in the sense of the number. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and then he showed them the Gilui Elokus, and they all said, Avayu Elokim. Yeah, it's a very similar idea. Yeah, it's a very similar basic idea, that he didn't prove them anything, he just showed them. But over there, at least he showed them os. You understand? Now, that was because they become tremendously drawn after the Avodah Zarah of the Baal. That's what it's called over there. And at least he showed them os. So once he showed them the os, it woke up their emunah pshuta. What the Rebbe is saying is that really, if a Yid lives in a normal way, he doesn't really need any os either. He doesn't need a sign, he doesn't need any proof. He just knows mitzad his neshama that Hashem echad, which means the emes idea of Hashem echad anyway implies that kula kamei chaloi chashivi. Why? How can you say the Eibush is one? It means that the whole world really has no Matthias, does it? So look, you keep the book open and you keep looking in the Sefer, and that's the way we learn, and that's the way we progress. Ask yourself to Shaila, what is the whole point here? What are we trying to bring indication to? And what is the nakuda here? People, when they say emunah, what do we mean by the lashon emunah? What is the taich emunah? If you take it by the Goyim, if you talk by Goyim, what do they mean by emunah? They say that up to a certain point they can understand and they can appreciate. But if you have questions and you don't know and this and that, then they're prepared to go beyond that, and they're prepared to say they believe. So a believer is somebody that he's made an act, that he's gone as far as he can, or he can't even be bothered going that far, and he just says, I'm prepared to believe. Yeah, I believe. Another person will come along and say, well, I'm not prepared to believe whether you believe, I don't believe. So they might have arguments, and they might get angry one with the other. But he says I believe, and he says I don't believe. Why should I do it? Why should I be prepared to take my mind to a certain point and then just give my mind away to something I don't know really anything about? That's not the taich emunah in Yiddishkeit. When we talk about emunah, that's not what we mean in Yiddishkeit, and that's what in the Talmud Tzedek wrote a whole series of Agoras on the Tanya, a whole series of Pirushim Ketzorim on the Tanya, and in Perek Tes he writes over there this whole what I'm about to say. And he says that the inyan of Emunah is really a development grammatically or consonantally or something to do with language from the word emes. In other words, emes and emunah are the same basic root word in incident. In other words, it's something which is emes, and it's the emes of Metzias. It will cause, if you have a kli to be makabel that emes, it will cause you to have emunah. It will cause you to be kosher to it and to be, accepting of that, because it is the emes. In other words, why do you believe as a yid? Because the emes of Metzias, emitis imotzoi, kula kamei kalei chashive, the emes of existence of Hashem. Well, that is like the Rambam says, emitis himotzoi. That's the emes of being and the emes existing being. Well, that shines automatically into a yid, because a yid's got inside himself a certain elikus in his neshama, a certain trait, like we're just saying from Atzilas, in the neshama. That's like an antenna and a kli which is makabel from the emes of Hashem. In other words, not you believe because you made a deliberate decision. Up to a certain point you can't understand, you can't allow, you're prepared to believe. The reason why Yid believes it because the emes of Metzias, which is elikus, like we said, all the rest of it is a dimayon. The emes imotzoi of the Eivishter is the only existing emesness of existence. Well, that shines into and lights up the neshama of a Yid and appears in the neshama of a Yid, and therefore whether he wants it or whether he doesn't, he's aware of that emes of Metzias, because he is part of that literally. He's a chelek elokah, he's a divine portion, and therefore he's got in himself a trace of that Atzilas, and therefore it's able to catch on to that antenna. It's just that the Guf and the Nefesh Abamis and his Yerida into this world cause him a whole series of bilbulim, of a mitzati emitis Metzias. That's the inyan of Emunah. And therefore Emunah by a Yid, not something he just decided that beyond a certain point he can't understand the way he just believes. Other people say they don't believe. He believes mitzadi emes appearance in his neshama of elikud. Why do we call it emunah? You can say he's just aware of it. Why do you say emunah, which implies the idea of faith? Because there's all this bilbul of the yeridas on neshama. All these great neshamas that we're talking about at the beginning of the sentence, all those great neshamas don't have that problem. The elikus and their keli, which is the elikus and their neshama, just get together, and therefore they're aware of elikus in a way that there's absolutely no way that they could ever even have any sveikas in Emunah or any doubts or anything of that nature. Although all the doubts come over in Perek Tes in Tanya, all the doubts come from the Helen V'Esther of the Guf. Of somebody who doesn't have the Helen V'Esther of the Guf, he doesn't have any doubts in Emunah either. However, so that's the whole difference between, and that's what the Rebbe is saying here, because the Neshama really stems from Atzilas. And really the neshama has in itself the inyan of mahus elikus, the inyan of Atzilas. Therefore we believe in elikus, not we believe in the sense that we just believe. We are aware of elikus in a way that we can't separate from it, and that's what we call emunah. Therefore the emes taicha, the word emunah, means something that you've been trained to, literally. When a soldier goes into training, it's called imunim over here. When you do, first of all, you do what's called imunim, meaning basic training. The word emunah is all elikus is done to you, which has prompted your neshama and trained it in a way that it brings out gilui what is hidden by the chumrius of the guf. Emunah by a yid is not a decision; it's a thing that happens to him mitzad the amitius elikus of his neshama and the amitius Metzias of elikus.
What was the kli that you mentioned that you need to accept the emes to? You said before that you need a kli.
That's the elikus in the neshama. The neshama, like we pointed out the whole time, the neshama comes from Atzilas. And even those who come down through the whole Yerida in Bias, of course, they still have that trace of Atzilas in their neshama. The neshama is able to, there's a certain trace, even in the neshama lamata, of mahus elikus. It becomes able to sense, be aware, and pick up the whole idea of mahus elikus, how it is mitzadayim.
There's no physical, it doesn't matter what your physical body
it doesn't matter what the physical body will do or will say, it will never be able to be mavalvul. So that really remains the case. You follow? So you'll say that there were certain people that they didn't follow their emunah. We see there were certain people that did deny, they didn't give themselves on Kiddush Hashem, or there's certain times in history. So we have to say that the answer there is that they were so mavubal by the bilbul of the goof, that even though they sense it, they sort of fall against it because they were so caught in the bilbul of the body. And therefore the Alter Rebbe in Perek Yud Ches, when he says that the union of Kiddush Hashem is a riot to this whole union which we're just talking about, he says that the expression Lochein B'chol Adoros Moshu Nafsham Al Kiddush Hashem Al Pi Haroi. If you look up carefully, you notice the Alter Rebbe uses the expression according to the majority of cases. Why does he write that? Because there was a certain minority that they didn't. And yet nonetheless the Alter Rebbe doesn't worry about that. That doesn't disturb the raya that he's bringing. But that's part of the raya in a way, that those who didn't, they were so much mavuled by the elam of the goof, that they didn't realize really that the neshama was talking to them. In other words, you can get so lost that your neshama will tell you, but you look the other way. You understand? He said, well, that's only in rare cases, but it did happen. So therefore the Alter Rebbe is careful to say al piroi. And so you shouldn't ask him a kasha from the small number that didn't. What it follows is that Amunah by a Yid is just his reaction and his what you might call absorption of the emes matzias of Elokus. That's Emunah by a Yid. And that's the pshat that we say in Maariv every night. Hashem Elokeichem emes be'emu. No, in other words, that emes and Emunah are linked together. That because Hashem Elokeichem is emes, then there's Mamela, Emunah, calls that. And that's a very basic and amazing point, and that's what's hidden in these words here, in these few sentences. That's why I took a bit of time to explain the whole thing, because it's a very, very basic nakuda in the teaching of Chabad Chassidus, and it's hidden in Perek Yud Ches v'Yud Tes in Tanya. And like I said, there's a whole view of the Rebbe, the Samech Tes, and it comes out a whole different understanding of what does it mean Emunah. The whole understanding of Emunah by a Yid is not the way the world understands Emunah at all. And we see that we have to learn about the Eibishter, so therefore the Rebbe puts in brackets the Chabadske Kwetch, as you might call it. This is what they call the Chabadske Kwetch. If we all understand, we're all aware of Hashem, the fact that the emes is meya into our neshama, therefore we have Emunah, but there mamela. It's not that we decide to have Emunah, we have it in ourselves. Mitzad our absorption of the truth, which is the emes of existence of Elokus. It's a say, leave a person like that, leave him. What do you need to, that's what a lot of people tell you, what do you need to learn to this for? People just believe him, well, leave him alone. What willst du von say? It ever says the Rebbe, all Yidden believe and feel and are aware. In other words, the Emunah doesn't really mean belief. What it really means is being bound up to the truth. That's what it really means. Rav says the Rebbe, for the sake of our service of Hashem, that the Eibishter wanted, and that's what the Rambam says, that Leida, you have to know as much as you can. That Hashem wanted that we should be able to understand in our service of Him, we should have hasoga, and we should have a reflection and understanding in the union of Akdas Hashem. Not that we really need that for our connection with the Akdas Hashem. Akdas Hashem we have mitzad our neshama, what that's called Emunah. But the Eibishter wanted to fill up our koyches, our giluim, how do you call them, our revealed aspects of our soul, which are the understanding and the appreciation, because they have a tremendous day-to-day effect on us. And then that deepens your Emunah. The more you begin to understand, then your Emunah goes up into a higher and deeper expression of itself, because it's not needed on the more simple levels. Therefore, he says that Liga means to struggle hard, to work hard. Sheyunach v'yuklat b'siklei. It should be well established and well absorbed into his seichel. In other words, that you're mechuyev to absorb into your mind as an understanding entity as much as you can about Achdus Hashem. That's part of our avodah, part of our service. Avol be'etzem ha'inyan, on the very essence of the matter of connection with Achdus Hashem, it's a simple, unshakable connection through emunah in every yid, and he doesn't really need any bonus. The whole union of these bonus is to richen our avodah, and through that, the famous beer and siddhis is that the more you come to appreciate, then the more profound your emunah comes. You become bound up to Hashem through that kesher with Him on higher levels and much more transcendent issues, because the more simple inyan have already become understanding by you. You appreciated them and brought them into you. And also the seichel being a thing which affects our daily lives. That's how we live on a daily basis. The more your seichel becomes involved, the more your simple day-to-day function becomes all involved in Achdus Hashem. Good. Okay, guys, so we'll hold there for this evening. And Be'ez Hashem, everybody should have a Masim Teva. And that's the whole union of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the whole